Hello once again and welcome back to the Ulgansah Witches. We are on Chapter 3. This one is called What Motivates? Here we go. On the open plains, southeast of Cyrodian, rode the only granddaughter witch of Hannah, on errand to the city of Edinburgh. Her task was to assess the damages that this community and their farmlands had after they had been raided by the forces of Dundrif. It was rumored from Cyrodian to Webben that they had been hit particularly hard, with many of the people taken prisoner and many more killed. Their crops were also rumored to have been looted or burned. When Braid arrived, she was alarmed to discover that the rumors were more of a kindly report than the truth. Edinburgh was decimated. The city had a population of nearly 6,000 before the Dundrif raid, but their numbers were closer to only 2,000 now. Most of the wooden structures had been burned, while those of stone still remained. The stone buildings consisted of a handful of churches, the military barracks, and the magistrate office. It was not enough to house the population for the approaching winter. The cold and rain would bring sickness and disease if these people couldn't find shelter before the end of autumn. Braid was the oldest child of Vin, a beautiful brunette with a serious mind. This mind of hers was in many ways a strength to her that led to many fine works of judgment and fairness in Ag, but it was also a point of pride for her. She felt so focused on obligation and duty that she took no thought for herself, leaving her alone without companion for most of her life. It also made her an ideal diplomat for both Queen Hannah and her uncle, Prince Kai. In this, she took no small amount of pride, therefore she was the best suited to spy out the conditions of Edinburgh. Sadness of the people and anger to her soul is what she found in the trodden city. 2 grand piles, nearly a quarter-mile from the city, were what she and her forces first met, the remnants of the Death Pyre, where days before the thousands of fallen had been burned to prevent the onset of disease or the attracting of Kragan. Kragan, with their ascetic saliva, high intelligence, and pack-hunting instincts, made for a greater danger than the potential onset of disease. These beasts looked similar to large wolves, could not be domesticated, and had no trouble with hunting and devouring humans easily. Edinburgh had enough woes for the coming winter. Hungry Kragan would mean the end of the city for a certainty. Therefore, the dead were burned to keep out the scent of death, and as a solemn precaution. Braid rode with her 2 personal guard and 500 soldiers. The 500 were all that Ag could spare, and were to help the city with anything that was of need, not just security. They were also well prepared to evacuate the citizens of Edinburgh if another raid or significant force came to abuse the people again. By all her early assessments, Braid was almost convinced the city and farmlands were going to be abandoned. So her first order to her officers was to find horses, wagons, and packing for the citizens' trek to Webben or Cyrodian. She knew this winter was going to be extraordinarily difficult, cold, and famishing. The walk into and past the remnants of the city gates felt more like trotting over a grave and ruin than a rush forward to rescue the weary and oppressed. Sullen and filthy faces met the foreign delegates in force. The eyes of the survivors combined with the silence that held the air to a frozen pitch of gloom caused the men of Braid to realize without a word that Edinburgh was a lost city. There was no hope, and few residents showed even a spark of desire to live on. They had been looted, murdered, raped, and many taken off to the east, where they would never know comfort or dignity again. Only the old, wounded, and the few that had hid well from the raid stood by with any ability to welcome the small force from their neighboring country. An old man stood, with the help of a large pitchfork, having only one leg to stand on. The other had been broken and poorly set, leaving his foot to dangle in a grotesque and twisted misdirection from normal. His calf was swelling, and looked to be in need of amputation to save the man's life. He was the only one with the energy or desire to speak. "Only now. You bring men too late, granddaughter sovereign of Ag. We're nothing. We have nothing but death to look forward to. Our envy is for our dead, not for a fallen king or patriotism. Go home and let us die. Your neglect assured the loss of Ebbenburg, and you will have no food from us this winter." Braid regarded the old man with a bit of pity and disgust in equal measure. The conflict of desires to help or abandon this ungrateful man struggled inside her. A brave soul meant worth, a coward meant defeat. Braid had too much pride to accept defeat at the hands of anyone. This old wretch was included. "Prepare to leave. Those of you who are unable to walk will ride. Those of you who wish to remain will receive no aid. As this old man has said, Ebbenburg is to be abandoned. We march at daybreak." And with those words, Brave waved off her soldiers, who quickly went to work. "I am going not. I end here. Just lend me a sword to die with." The old man spoke, not from bravery, but from the voice of a broken and hopeless shell that was once a human. "Ag steel has no place in the hands of a coward. Go sharpen a stick to run yourself through, old man. Set your example of defeat to the Corbin and the Kragan. Those who remain deserve more than the wailing of a coward's vomit that you spew without consideration of your fellows," said one of Braid's guards. She was content with his words and walked on past the old fellow. The crowd that had gathered near the city center numbered near 200, but the side streets and the alleyways held many more. The look of want was never varied from face to face except for two. There were a couple of men near the back of the throng that looked just a little less disturbed, and with a small spark of hope that remained. Upon seeing this, Braid went straightway to these citizens for an interview. She would foster hope in the people by using the example of these men who remained without cowardice. "You two, come forward, no delays," she ordered. It went unheeded as the men tried to hide in the crowd and dart away. "Bring them here," Braid gave command to her guard, who swiftly grabbed the men by the collars, then escorted them with a bit of force to the granddaughter sovereign. She looked the pair over, walking a circle around them as they were held in place. They had no weapons and nothing hidden on their persons as looters would. At first, it was puzzling to Braid why these men would flee without cause. But then she noticed it, a very subtle tale. "Gentlemen, from where did you purchase these shirts that you wear? Tell me." The two looked at each other, but didn't respond readily. After a second prod for an answer, one spoke. "From Cyrodian, my lady." "Cyrodian, you say? Which tailor? I would very much like to visit her or his shop." "There's a shop near the south gates. There you will find him. He is priced fair and reasonable." The same man spoke with a bit of hiding in his eyes and a weak voice. "When was this purchase? For your clothing looks somewhat fresh." "Yestermoon, my lady, not but 2 weeks ago." The second man found his voice finally. Braid walked behind the two men and gave a nod to her guard to increase his grip, securing the two. He did so without a word. "Gentlemen, you know something. I was at Cyrodian just weeks past. I found the shop of which you speak. However, in Cyrodian, there are no men tailors. I also noticed the stitchwork upon these shirts you wear. That particular style is not known here in the East, but only in Senton. What say you?" Braid didn't wait for a reply before she forced her dagger into the back and upper portion of the neck, thrusting the tip into the skull of the man who had replied first. He dropped silently as death was near instant. "Will you tell me who you really are?" The second man looked down at his fallen associate. He knew that his words wouldn't save him from a similar fate. So instead of trying to lie again, or even attempt at saving his life by expressing the truth, he made a swift reveal of a small stiletto that had been concealed in his sleeve. With a quick and well-practiced motion to assassinate Braid, he lunged for her heart with the point of his blade. The stiletto missed its mark, but found the fleshy part of Braid's forearm. The dagger went in painfully deep and damaged the nerve to her left forearm that she had used to defend against the deadly strike. Braid's guard was quick to snap the neck of the second prisoner. "It's a shame. We haven't been able to capture a single enemy alive in weeks. We'll need assistance with this wound. It seems the blade has damaged my ability to move my 3 fingers." She was not a large or physically powerful woman. She had some beauty to her, but Braid's greatest feature was her command of her emotions, composure, and resilience to pain. She didn't make a sound or fuss over the deep and bleeding wound to her flesh. Her heavy coat was rolled up at the sleeve. Her canvas riding top was cut from the wrist to the elbow and replaced by a bandage. She would heal in time, but the example of fortitude that she set would last far longer than her bandages. End of chapter 3.